So today we'll be making some potion bottles. This is more so a physical prop that your players could interact with, and by interact, I mean drink. For this project, you need a bottle/jar, some labels. We will also need wax, and a lighter. I'll also be using a stamp wax melter thing. It'll come in handy. Let's get into it. I'm using an old tomato sauce jar. First, we'll take the label off. You could use any kind of jar with a nice top. I find this one pretty easy to work with. I wanted to use this because it's pretty easy to rinse out. So with any label, there's going to be some residue or glue left over. That doesn't really matter. We're going to cover that up with a new label. The labels may change depending on what kind of jar you have, but I just got these at Staples. We got to do labels and paint the tops. So with painting these tops, my main goal is just to paint over the words and logo that doesn't really fit with a magical potion of a fantasy realm. I'm going to start with the ring here. I'm going to try to keep the lines somewhat consistent. They're not going to be perfect. Most people wouldn't really notice, but as long as it's not too messy. Sometimes I'll paint over it, and I could just scoop that paint off with my fingernail or just like the top of your finger. You could also use a paper towel, it doesn't really matter. Anything to get that off and then make it clean looking. We want to copy this earlier top that I painted just to make everything consistent. The lions looked pretty cool, and they were already golden, so I figured that would match well with the gold paint. Anytime I painted text, I wanted to keep it rectangular. Kind of hard to do that with paint, so then I'd add a bit more details like these lines and dots, just to have a little pattern. So I ended up doing a couple of these. I also added a bit to this smaller potion bottle, which I did in silver. These are from earlier projects that I kind of tested before I made this video. So now I have to pick out a potion label. I've already done a bunch of homebrew potions for my own session, so I wanted to choose one from this list. This is just to keep things consistent. You don't have to do exactly what I do. You could make a D&D potion from like the player's handbook, or you could come up with something yourself. I'm going to pick the Fire Breath of Radon because that's cool, and if I want to draw on the label, fire is easy to draw. First, we're going to do everything out in pencil. I'm drawing things in pencil because it's easy to make spelling mistakes or spacing mistakes. So if I write something and it doesn't look quite right, I could easily just erase it and retry to make sure the letters are centered, everything's a similar size or it flows well. And once I have the pencil done and it looks good, I'm going to go over it again with a marker. I'm using a fine point Sharpie here for most of the text. I like using a black marker because it makes everything pop really easy. So for the Mega Manson company title, I'm going to try to do this out in a thicker gold because it's a larger text. So the reason I did pencil to marker is that you could easily erase the pencil afterwards and only leave behind the marker. And I find that really cleans up the text a lot and makes the marker pop even more. Because with the pencil lines, they can sometimes go outside of the letters and it looks very messy or sketchy, but this cleans it up pretty easily. Next, we're going to take a red marker and maybe a couple other fire-colored markers because now we're going to do a little label design like you see on craft beer. Here, I'm just drawing a big fiery explosion. This is just to represent what the potion does or what the fire breath spell should do. Depending on what kind of potion you're making, you could do a different design. You could have fun with it. Doing it underneath the text, I found that looked pretty cool. And with the black marker, it'll show up over pretty much anything. You don't have to go too crazy with this, just a little design just to strike home the type of potion this is. So now we're going to have to attach these labels. You have to be careful with these labels because it's easy to misalign them. This bottle happened to be perfect for the labels I chose. It almost lines up perfectly between the ridges. The idea was that I would take the sticker and line it up with the bottom ridge just to make sure it was all equally spaced. We want to avoid any wrinkles, air bubbles, and going over the ridge of the glass. So this might take a couple tries, which isn't a big deal. So next is the tape. I'm using hockey tape for this because it's easy to work with. I can rip it off with my hands. But the idea with this is that I'm going to seal in the label. You might be wondering, why would I seal in the label? The label's fine, it's already stuck there. What do I need that for? When I first made these bottles, I only used the labels, not really thinking much of it. But once I mixed a potion and put it in the fridge, condensation would start forming on the bottle. And once it formed on the bottle, it would make the label wet, and then things would start to run. A lot of my earlier bottles had problems with running, and a lot of the labels would get wrinkly after a use or two. So I knew the problem was condensation on the bottle. I needed the label to not be the first surface that the air would hit. So I decided to put a plastic layer over it, and hockey tape was the easiest thing I could think of. This way, the label's completely sealed in with the tape, and then the condensation should form on the outside of the hockey tape rather than in the label. Will this work? Not really sure, but we're gonna try it. This is what I'm running with now, so you might have a better solution. That's just what I came up with. It's key to let the tops dry first. This top left video shows that I didn't wait long enough, and the paint was still only partially dry, so I had to leave it for a bit longer. Didn't take too much longer. It's another part of the process that you need to take very gently. Yeah. So far, we've gone from tomato bottle to labeled bottle, and now it's time for wax. So I already did a couple previous tests with this wax. This is my second time ever working with wax, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I have this big variety kit of wax with a bunch of metallics and other colors. We're not gonna use all these today, just gonna use the red one for right now. This little contraption I have with the spoon and candle heater is usually used for stamping letters, but we're not doing that today, obviously. So I'm gonna let this melt. Once it melts, we're gonna have to act fast. I'm gonna try to pour it over the ridge and move the bottle as I pour so I could get a nice circle. You see some areas I have very thin, other areas are too thick. I wasn't really consistent in the way I turned the bottle or was pouring the wax, so it's a bit of a process. I also like to tip the bottle up to see if I can get the wax to run. This first attempt here is okay. You can see some thin areas of the ring, and it didn't quite drip the way I was hoping, so we're gonna have to do maybe another pour. So rather than using up all my little nubs, I bought a large pack of red wax. The first method of using the wax sealing kit was a bit slow, so I decided to do some trial and error. So with this lighter and stick, I ended up just burning the stick. The wax didn't really melt off like I hoped. I was wondering maybe the butane in the lighter is just too hot. By the time it got drippy, it would just instantly burn, and I was just messing up the wax. So the lighter was too hot. Well, let's try to use a regular candle, a Wiccan candle. This worked a little bit. It melted the wax stick, but once again, it was not faster at all. It was just kind of annoying to work with. I had a similar issue. It just wasn't dripping off the way I hoped, so I just gave up on it. So none of that really worked, so I just committed to the wax seal spoon. But with these gigantic sticks, I need to cut them up into smaller pieces so I could actually fit it in the spoon. My first attempt was the printer bed scraper. I was hoping I could just cut through it, and when that didn't work because the wax stick was too tough, I was hoping that maybe I could just make a cut along the entire circumference, and maybe I could break it off, but it didn't really go that deep. So I decided to go with something thicker like this flathead screwdriver. I was hoping I could just work with the cut I already made and maybe pry it apart. That didn't work either. So I had to default to the messy option, which is a multi-tool saw. My whole camera mount shook as I would saw into this. I sawed into enough where I could just break it off with my fingers. Even though it left a lot of bits and grains, I could easily pick that up with my fingers and throw it into the spoon. So this wax is a bit darker. I think it's because I burned half the wax that I melted here. It's still good wax, so I'm going to use it. If it's a bit darker, not a big deal. So this time I'm going to slowly pour it over the glass. And this had a nice drip to it. You see it starts dripping to the side, so I gotta quickly turn it down. You can see some drips are going very nicely over a couple letters, but not a big deal. This is just a warning label. They're on every other potion. And it looked pretty cool. Again, it's a bit messy because I'm doing the ring in parts, but not too bad. So after another round of cutting and melting, we're ready for another pour. The goal is to cover the entire glass rim in wax, and nothing too thin. I want a thick ring around the glass ridge, just to make it look like it was one pour rather than done in sections. So I'm kind of covering up the ends and any weird looking bits. So with the ring complete, we're going to go for a metallic stamp. The idea with this ring is that it's kind of like a magical circle, perhaps, that's sealing in and imbuing the bottle with magic, and we need to give that magical seal of approval. The stamp ring is the final wax part of the potion bottle. So this is like a compass stamp. So to make this seal pop, we're going to use some metallic wax from my little kit. I want a metallic seal because against the red wax, that metallic will really pop and show off the cool different parts of the stamp as the light hits it. I need a clump of wax to stamp, and a clump is likely to run on this round bottle, so I need to pick a location where some of the wax will be slowed down or halted. So you need to pick a spot on your wax ring that has a couple ridges or pores that have kind of created a bit of like a V or an arm to catch the wax. So I don't work often with wax, and I was thinking that the stamp would dry or solidify a lot quicker, and so what went wrong? I took it out too quickly, did not let it cool, so we're gonna have to do something a bit different. But maybe I could still fix things. Let's just stick this back on, see what happens. That didn't work. So let's pry this failure off it. Still looks kind of cool though. So let's try this again. Maybe with a bit more metallic this time, because it seems the red kind of overpowered a lot of the coloring there. One thing about this failed initial attempt is that it created a nice little gap for us, which is even better than last time. And now we're gonna do the same thing. Act quickly with this stamp, stick it on, and just leave it. So this time I was scared. As you see, I lean over and look at it. I gave this maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Probably a bit longer than I had to have, but I didn't want to make the same mistake again. And it stuck to the bottle, and I found that pretty funny, so I was testing it a bit. Let's give this a go. I'm testing it a little bit, hoping that I could just gently wiggle it off. Oh, and a snap. There we go. It's not perfectly round, but I got most of the stamp on there. It's a little bit hot, but not that much. Came out pretty decent, I think. It could be a bit better, but considering it didn't rip off and it looks like it's fully stuck there, I call that a win. So you might be using a different jar. I have this smaller bottle here, which is a different shape. This smaller one, the hockey tape didn't really fit as well. The top part of the tape is sticking out a bit. I should have cut it. I couldn't really get it to not form those bubbles. So I needed to fill up this area with wax just to seal in the label. And then we're gonna pour again. I'm trying to aim for the pockets, or at least on top of it. I lost a lot of wax early, so we have another big clump on the right, but it wasn't too bad. So now we're gonna do another stamp, and I have this nice little Y section that should capture a lot of the wax. So I'm gonna carefully pour this stamp at the ready, and we're gonna go in again. So you might not necessarily have a V section on your own wax bottle. It'd be pretty easy to make one, and it doesn't have to be a V section, just has to be a couple ridges that will catch a lot of the wax. And there you have it, another stamp. We have a nice thick line across the potion. So I call that another win. So these are the final results. I didn't use wax on all of my potion bottles. I kind of want to test the hockey tape alone just to see if it works, but successful project. This is a work in progress. Here's some close-up pictures of the stamps. I think it turned out pretty good. I might add more to these later down the line. There's some other potions I didn't use in the video that I made. There's also the most important part about this project is that it's usable and drinkable. I like to use a lot of food coloring in mine. The base is usually lemonade and cranberry juice, just something that is nice to drink. I'll add dyes to it. For health potions, I'll use red. For something else, I might go with the green or blue. Anything that's kind of fun. And if you like to mix alcohol in it, it's easy to add a shot or two. And maybe you'll add a little bit of extra alcohol to make it difficult for them. It's up to you. Enjoy, and like and subscribe if you got anything out of this or some laughs.